understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I'm your host, Renee Small, and joining me today is my dear, good friend, BFF, best friends forever. That's what the kids say, I guess. And Renee Small, Cybersecurity Super Recruiter and friend. You're not even like a friend of the show at this point. You're like family to the show. You know, yeah, friends to the show, but you're another.
I got my segment. I got my monthly time slot.
You have your monthly time slot, so it's a whole different. You've transcended just friend of the show because you're just next level now. Thanks for joining, everyone. This is the Tech Behind FinTech. We are streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and we also have a live stream going for Instagram. I can see one of my jiu-jitsu guys just joined, Gian. Thank you for joining, everyone. Today's topic, everybody is talking about AI. You hear about ChatGPT, you hear about all the things going on. So we want to do an episode today, and how exactly would one get into it, right? So AI and FinTech, unmasking the recruitment roadblocks, and trying to understand that. Although Renee has transcended a friend of the show and is now family to the show, we still have to read a bio because some people might not be familiar with her and her wonderful work. So we will do that. Cybersecurity Super Recruiter Renee Small helps people take the mystery out of breaking into cybersecurity. She is passionate about building the best-in-class cybersecurity teams. In 2017, Renee received the Stevie Award for Female Entrepreneur of the Year. She is a #1 Amazon best-selling author of Magnetic Hiring, a contributing editor to several cybersecurity magazines, and she co-hosts a podcast called Breaking Into Cybersecurity. I was thinking, is that going to change to Breaking Into AI?
It might. Last time I was thinking I should be doing Breaking Into UPS when the UPS drivers got that 6.
They made a come up.
They had to come up. So
yeah, they made an extreme come up. I was gonna sometimes the problem with talking to you sometimes because we talk so much, I forget that it's live. And I was about to say something and I caught myself. some family some personal stuff with former UPS driver that it was gonna slip out, and then I was like, whoa.
There's a camera, there's this big red live button.
We're live, we just can't.
It's a hot mic.
So today's topic, Renee, right? Everyone's talking about AI. It's obviously big. Billions of dollars projected in the future in this vertical. Not just in FinTech, but in general. And The question is, what are some of the recruitment roadblocks? What's happening?
Well, we could start out by talking just about the size of the industry. So it's ballooned. It's came pretty much out of left field. Well, I guess it hasn't come out of left field. Every time something big happens, everyone says it came out of left field, but it didn't. It's been kind of growing in the labs and stuff as usual for years. And so right now it's a $43 billion industry, going up to a $50 billion industry by 2028. So in 5 years, it's going to be a $50 billion AI in FinTech market, AI specifically in FinTech. And I was doing some research around FinTech in particular, and there's so many different, multiple applications. So people think, or I guess the one that's the most talked about, maybe most popular, is like the Chat GPT and how that's used and how it's being used for everything in school, kids can have a whole fleshed out paper based on, hey, ChatGPT, write me a paper on X, and then it comes out and it's perfect type of a thing. So, but there's multiple applications used in the financial services space. But to highlight a few, obviously we've all seen those chatbots, the AI chatbots, and that's across the board, right? So you say something, it chats something back. That's kind of been happening over the past few years. That's nothing new, but just becoming more and more used across industries and for pretty much any kind of FinTech is one, but across all industries, customer service, all that kind of stuff. So that's been around. Predictive analytics is another space that they talked about in particular for fraud detection. So when you're talking about fintechs and you're thinking about fraud and the detection and like looking through swaths of data, like that is an area that fintechs are using. Anti-money laundering technology. So, another arena where AI is being used to do the work that it would take, groups and of analysts to work on. So, the demand for AI professionals is just high. It's huge. And because a lot of people are not yet skilled in some of the areas, of course, there's always a crunch. And you and I were talking about this beforehand, but typically, or before the camera started rolling, every time there's an industry, I won't say buzz because it's something new. So there is a buzz, right? So people are shifting to a different type of new technology most of the time, right? So I always go back to, since it's like right when we were coming out of school, like the iPhones, and there were no apps. There was no such thing. There was, like what is an app? What could somebody in 1995, did anybody know what an app was? No, and then, or maybe, from a phone perspective. So applications, yes, right? So we knew like in computers and what have you, had apps. Do you want to say something? Do you look like you're about to say
So funny that you said that, right? And this is why you have to keep your hand on the pulse, because I remember back in, I want to say 07, 06, my brother-in-law, they shout him out, Ben Bosa, right? He was like, you should get into apps. You should learn how to build apps. I was like, yeah, whatever, dude, man. I don't know. I was, just one of those things. He's telling me this stuff. Like, yeah, whatever. And then all of a sudden, right?
Right. You feel like it's all of a sudden.
Millions building apps, right? And I just think, since then is why I just think it's so important to keep your fingers on the pulse of what's going on. And even if you might not be an expert in it, right? Try to like learn about it. How does the process work? Maybe you can partner with people. Maybe you can figure it out. So, it's just so funny you said that, because that's exactly what I just thought of. And hence why we do the tech behind FinTech and trying to just keep our hands on the pulse and learn what's going on. It's interesting you said with left field, and I joked earlier, but I was quite, every joke has a little bit of seriousness underneath it. I specifically remember you starting breaking into cybersecurity because all of these questions were around, well, how do I get into cybersecurity? And people still ask the question, but it's like, how do I get it? And then now you have AI, and it's the same type of things. It's like, how do I get it? Or because it just seems so
out there.
Removed from
yeah.
Like Minority Report with Tom Cruise, and it's like, wow, because you have people now just saying, I don't even, Chat GPT is too hard for me. Like, I don't even.
Like people don't even know what some of this stuff. I mean, it's interesting because for me, AI is a little bit more, because of Chat GPT. I think it's easier to see how it can be used versus cybersecurity. Like when people were talking about, and this so breaking into cybersecurity is 5 years old this month, which is crazy. The LinkedIn and LinkedIn Live and live streaming, all that stuff. But prior to that, like, go back 10 years, go back to when I remember graduating. Oh my God, this is totally dating us. So early 2000s, right? And I remember a friend going into, I don't know if it was called cybersecurity at the time, but she was going into whatever the name, it might have been information. I think they were calling it information security, something. And I was totally confused. Like, what is that? What are you going to be doing? It seemed to make no sense whatsoever to me, but at the time, EY or PwC or one of the consulting companies was hiring in this space, and they were hiring all of us college grads to go into, people that had like tech, well, we weren't computer science, but we were in the business school. So we had like business technology degrees.
Information secure management, information systems,
right? So those were our degrees. So they were like hiring us in droves to go into these various areas. And I remember her saying that, and I was just like, "What is that? What are you going to be doing?" like it was so far out there. And then fast forward, when I got into recruiting in that cybersecurity space, I also was like, "What is this?" So going back, so 5 years ago is when breaking into cyber, showed up, because the entry level people were trying to figure it out. But 10 years, I take it back maybe 10 years, when, it seemed new to me, and it wasn't, right? But it seemed new to me in this arena of recruiting cyber professionals. And just me trying to get a grasp of like, what does this mean? Like, break this down to me like I'm in kindergarten type of thing. So, and how do people get in, and where do you find the people and all that stuff? So it's literally the same iteration. Like every couple years, something shows up. We have to, it's a new technology that it booms in the industry. Then folks have to kind of catch up and hire talent. And I think I'm going to find a way to coin this in some kind of way, but especially because people always say, how do you break in? How do you break in? How do you break in? And immediately they think education, which is one component, especially if you're relatively junior or you're coming completely out of the industry. So, if you're coming out of high school, that's one path. Yes, you got to get educated. If you're coming out of a completely different profession, if you were a truck driver and you want to get into this, yes, you got to get education. But the folks who are already in fintechs, already in IT, already in like some adjacent role, one of the easiest ways to move over is to pivot within your company. So if the company is looking for people, they're more likely to take someone from inside. And this has happened pretty much in all of these different companies. If you go way back and you talk to the cybersecurity people that got pulled in, like back when there were like 3 people in the cybersecurity department, they would tell you, oh, somebody came and said, hey, not somebody, a leader, right? VP, SVP, C-suite, somebody says, hey, I need you 3 sysadmins, 2, an analyst, somebody else. And they just pull together a team of people from within the company. And they were the beginning of this department that's now 500 people, 1,000, 700 people, whatever. But in the beginnings, that's typically what it is. They come and look within, okay, these people have some skills. We know, like, for example, Python is a skill, the different skill sets. Like, okay, well, then pull these couple of folks, we'll give them some training, get it started, and then see what we can recruit in the marketplace, because it's always going to be difficult in the very beginning, especially to recruit, because nobody really has the skills yet.
So they don't have 10 years of experience of
anybody that has 10 years of AI experience. I need to meet that person. I want them on my podcast.
And the people that do, so my graduate advisor, like he's been in this game for a very long time, but like he's a PhD, right? So you have like PhD guys who've been at this for a minute studying this stuff that have it, but they're not. They're not. You're not going to just find them randomly, right? Say, oh,
yeah. Like how many PhDs are there doing AI, like working in AI, like 20? I mean,
probably a larger number than that, but it's still like a
100. It's still not going to fill what I just read an article that said there was going to be something like 97 million jobs open in AI.
97 million jobs.
I literally just read an article. I'm gonna see if I could pull it up because I want to be.
That's AI in general across multiple verticals
and across like the world. But yes. So, if you think about that just as a whole, people are going to eventually touch it. And I don't know if that's a real number, but even if it's off by half, 50 million people that are needed in one role or another, from this technology, which also made me think about the fact that people were so nervous saying, oh, when AI comes, it's going to take away all these jobs are going to go, which they are, but then all these other ones will be created. So
it's one of these things in which, at the end of the day, I've dedicated I guess it's weird to even say it, but I've dedicated my life to technology, right? In terms of I've been in it for so long and so many different, and the one tried and true thing that we see is new things come out all the time. Some things are harder to grasp than others, right? Now, you mentioned earlier, right? You have a foundational approach, and if you have some foundational knowledge base, it's easy to not easy, but you can then transition and kind of acquire new skills to adapt. So you kind of need to be able to adapt to new changes and so forth. And I want to I want to go in two directions, right? Because I know we have a lot of your audience, hashtag security peeps are looking at this, and some of them are going to be asking the break-in question. But I want to cover it now from that perspective second. But first, let's go into like the roadblocks, blocks, and the challenges. And especially for fintechs, because any vertical that has large amounts of data that needs to be traversed, you're gonna at this in 2023, you're gonna and beyond moving forward, right? Even last year, you're gonna leverage AI. If you're not, you're gonna be behind. So you have tons of bank data, you have tons of user data, you have tons of all this data, and we need to basically look at it, like you said, we could get predictive on it, or we could just say, okay, what exactly do we have, and what type of insights can we extrapolate and then put into motion for the business, right? That's exactly what you're doing, and especially in finance and healthcare. Totally different. Like, how do we do it to better help the patient? What are the roadblocks in getting it? And I see that even though we're talking about a different technology, and correct me if I'm wrong, the roadblocks and challenges will still be the same regardless of it, just in general, whether it's like, because you said the same thing about cybersecurity before. That's why you had breaking into cybersecurity. I remember when you made the pivot in your recruitment career to like, you know what, I'm going to niche and focus on this.
Yeah.
So what are those things that companies can do? What are the roadblocks, number one? And what are some ways they can work around the roadblocks?
It's the same all the time. So you're not going to have the talent. Like everybody wants, I just got a request for an AI, engineer or something. And initially they're like, okay, well, I guess this role is going to be probably like 300,000, like they throw out these numbers, they throw out these things, and it's just going to be hard to find people, just because in the beginning of anything, you have less people that have those skills. So the challenge is going to be finding the talent out there in the marketplace with the specific skill sets, or a lot of skill sets. So what companies are really going to have to do, and the ones that are seasoned, they understand this. Again, they go within first. Especially if it's a big company, go within, recruit from within. So finding out, okay, we know this, if we're looking for an engineer, they need to have computers, should have, or I won't say should, would be nice to have a computer science background, or somebody that's done, development, understands these different technologies, et cetera, and go and do digging in their own backyard first. Then if they can't find that, usually you can, especially in these big, large companies that have tens and hundreds of thousands of people. So that's one group. Then if you're in smaller company, you definitely would likely have to bring your expectations down of what you can afford for what's in the market. because anybody that has the skill set is going to be in extremely high demand and can probably pick and choose what they want to do, where they want to work, what they want to do, you know, how much they want to get paid and all that stuff. So again, going to the university. So this is where your entry level talent comes in really, really handy, because they are chomping at the bit to get experience, corporate experience. So, you know, hiring college grads, hiring folks who have that, you know, computer science, and then having them do the research, or having them, giving them some training on what it is that you need to get done. Because again, all of these technologies, it's the same thing, right? Continuous learning. I think you said that earlier. You said your whole career has been continuous learning. As I'm reading all of these technologies, there were no apps. There was no iPhone. There was no Android. There was no cybersecurity professionals. There was no, you know, you just continuously learning about what the next thing. There was no Python. There was no, you know, you go all the way back. You know, some of the. I mean, when I was in school, we were doing C.
I was doing, before Python, I was doing Perl, man. I absolutely hated coding in Perl. And I say it bothered me to know if I did it for a long period of time, but when like Python came out, it was just so much better. But I remember the pain of having to write back end development in Perl, man. Perl was one of those. I just had like a flashback.
Yeah, I mean, I have a flashback from my C class in NYU, like in pain, like I can't believe, like, you know, trying to get out of that class. So there's always going to be an iteration. There's always a next new, you know, oh, this new technology, oh, this new, you know, this new thing. So you have to be just a continuous learner and be able to like break stuff apart, understand it. How do I get to the meat of this thing? Right? Me as a recruiter, as an owner of a recruitment company, I have to dig in now. Okay, what do I tell these clients, or how do you position, like, this person wants, like, the person that reached out to me and say, hey, we want this talent. You're not going to get, you know, yes, you want this long list of things. That's likely not going to happen. There's only X amount of people in the marketplace with these skills. And that your PhD friend is probably like one of 50 people around the country that can do this. And how much is he going to cost? More than your CEO, you know, like that kind of a thing. So it's understanding the expectations of where you can go and get the talent, what you truly need, the true skills. So if you need, and I always say this to all leaders, top 3 skills. If you know you want, okay, this engineer needs to know Python, an expert in this, an expert in 2 or 3 things, then those are the 2 or 3 things you zoom in on, and you find those people anywhere. So if you want to find a senior Python person, you can find that. And can you teach the other 1 or 2 things? Can you supplement with LinkedIn courses or other, you know, can you send them to a boot camp to learn some of this stuff? So that's kind of how it goes. And that's how it's gone with all the different, as the technologies evolve, it's the same thing, because you have to learn something new.
I want to tap into that. Like, I want to summarize that so it's clear to people. So you're saying now, from the employer standpoint, you list out the 3 skills that are necessary for this particular role, right?
Yes.
Then you prioritize those 3 skills. Am I hearing you correctly? So you have prioritization 1, 2, 3. So let's say if you could then hone in on the top 1 or 2, even if you get the 1, then help them build the 2.
Right. Can you build the 2? And that's how most of, like, when you have startups that have those types of budgets, they're like, you know what, I know this person's good in this and this. Let me pull these, you know, like the harder skill, whatever. It's like, okay, I need this one thing, or these top 2 skills. When I say thing, these top 2 skills for this role, I could teach the rest. I can bring in, you know, I can get information. I can, you know, have this person take a boot camp, go to a class, or whatever the case is. And that's how all the cyber departments were built in the beginning. That's how all these other, you know, these other courses, or these other technologies have evolved and then grown into this talent. And so you'll end up especially with the smaller companies, getting, you know, some college grads and some folks that you can afford that have those skills, the top skills, and then you can build from there, putting them in boot camps, putting them in, giving them, access to like LinkedIn Learning and the other resources that would give them the skills that they need for this new, these new technologies.
And you mentioned something I kind of want to ask you on that. I have my thoughts on it, and I'll share it afterwards. You mentioned college grad, right? In the cybersecurity world, people that were able to break into cybersecurity without necessarily having an undergraduate degree. Why? What are your thoughts on why AI is different?
Actually, you know what? I take that back. I always think college grad, which in this current market, you do not have to be a college grad. But if you're entry level in the field that you're going into, so I should say that. Either emergent talent in that field, entry level in that field. So you could be seasoned in something else, but you're pivoting into that field, or you could be seasoned, or you could have zero experience and becoming, coming out of high school or coming out of somewhere else with specific skill sets that you're learning on your own. Typically, when companies tend to go to, they do recruit from campuses and colleges. And I tend to, in my mind, because I used to be one of those campus college people, recruiters going out and bringing in talent. But it's not only college grads. So I want to make mention of that.
It's interesting, right? And I'm currently and I'm back in academia. I've been in this PhD program at Morgan for like the last 3 years. Now I'm at the latter stages. I will say, and I don't know, I have to get numbers on this. I don't have stats on this. Though, and it depends what level you want to get into, right? So we're talking about like front end, more so prompt engineering. What's prompt engineering? Like literally writing prompts to the large language models like ChatGPT, writing instructions so you can basically get it to give you the information that you need. I get that, but I see a lot of more people with undergraduate degrees in this field, more people with masters, only because I just know of like with the and I'm like the AI person. I mean, the goal is to understand more about it, but they take classes in it over the last few years. But the mathematical courses, right?
Mm-hmm.
The intense. I mean, this one course was like a nightmare, man. Like intense engineering math, right? So, and you find those university settings. So I don't know, and maybe we'll bring you back on the show to really discuss it. Like, let's see what happens in the next couple of years, right? To see like comparison in terms of the different technology fields you can go into that require or that these people have degrees versus the people that don't. I'm really interested in that stat. Like I said, only sometimes when you're around a certain thing, this is all you see. So like back in academia, these people like have masters and they do it. So it's just I'm in that world, and along with being in corporate and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but I do find it interesting how that will work moving forward, because I think it was different for cybersecurity and different things that we've seen in the past.
Well, as much as people have, I'd be curious actually to look at the stats of even the cybersecurity people that have gotten jobs without degrees that don't have experience. Because, and when I say don't have experience, it's don't have either military experience, corporate experience, like some other place where you were formally trained in the field. So it would be interesting for me to do some digging into how many real deal, like I was a high school kid and I got a job in security, and where I am today, I was a bus driver, kind of taught myself, and now I'm in security today. I'll be really curious as to how that happens, because I think relaxing the degree makes a whole lot of sense. But the managers, like people say, oh, you don't need a college degree, but then you need something. Like they're not just bringing in anybody. So like if you're in the military, for example, and you've gotten training for 10 years, but you happen to not have a degree, that's going to be a completely different conversation than someone who is, coming out of high school with, and don't get me wrong, there's some high school kids that are like whizzes, but your average standard, I came out of high school and now I'm looking for a job and, I can go, do this thing over here, or self-taught or what have you. So I'd be really curious to even see those stats, because I think more often than not, most of the hires that are happening are still college hires. I believe so. In these fields, because, as I was looking at some of the stats, some of the job descriptions, almost all say computer science degree and or similar experience. So, it would be interesting for me to see like how that worked, how it's worked actually from a security standpoint, and how it's going to work in AI.
I'm definitely curious to see those stats. Like, so like, just because of the world I'm in now, what I'm seeing, and then my colleagues that are going for certain roles right now, or that we worked on AI projects and stuff, just in that world, or the papers that we're looking at now. Like, we saw research papers, have to review it.
Yeah.
All of this, and most of this stuff that's coming out, even our
academia.
Mike was on the show he works at Microsoft. He works with the CEO there. He was even saying, like, for part of his study, looking at research papers. So a lot of people a lot of these companies that are making advances, they are looking at the research paper. Who are the research papers written by? People in so it's just like, and they're using that to, okay, this is what's next. This will have to look into, and people are talking about it, and that's what really starts happening with these.
At the end of the day, it's back to the research, and it's the research institutions that drive a lot of this stuff. Like most of the technology that comes out of the research institutions. So somebody working on something, I'm digging, and then they get into something else, and that becomes the work. Or in the military, I'm working on a project right now, and the person who has this particular technology, he was in the military, created the thing, and now it's out. So again, if it's not some structured environment, if it's not either military and or a university setting, research setting, I'm really curious as to, how many folks are really truly like self-taught. I got on YouTube and learned a lot of this stuff, and that's it, and that's all they had. So I'd be curious.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think there are people that do it and they go the entrepreneurial route, which is totally cool. They work for themselves, they figure that out. But I'm interested in the ones that are actually like employed by
employees. Yeah. That's the crew, because the entrepreneur types they have a separate mindset anyway. Like they, that's your few and far between, very driven, focused. Like, I'm digging all the way into this type of people, and I'm thinking about like the masses of folks who are being hired from at the Googles and the other organizations, the Airbnbs, like the people who are being hired by Meta, by all these different places, what kind of backgrounds they're coming out of. So it's just it'd be interesting. That's some interesting homework for me.
So at this point, we need to take a message from our sponsors, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about step by step how exactly can you get into AI. So we talk from the employee perspective, employer. Let's talk from the employee perspective next. But now, a message from our sponsors.
Are you an emerging fintech with a limited budget seeking more sales and partners? Introducing Strategic Generation, your partner in leveraging cybersecurity for sales and partner enablement. Fintechs often lose opportunities due to unsophisticated cybersecurity programs. That's where we come in. Strategic Generation assists with due diligence, security posture visibility, penetration testing, and on-demand virtual CISO services. We connect your systems to our partnered platform, and voila! instant access to real-time diagnostics and compliance frameworks such as SOC 2 and PCI DSS. Gain the confidence of prospects and partners. Strengthen your cybersecurity program and drive success. Stop losing deals due to cybersecurity. Visit strategicgeneration.com and click on Demand CISO to connect with an expert.
We are back. So Renee, we touched base earlier from the employer standpoint, right? Now let's touch base. Someone's working, whether they're employed, but they're not doing AI, and they're like, you know what? I want to get into AI. What are the steps that they can do to do that?
Yeah, if they are, you said unemployed or not in the field. Or
You know
not.
what? They're working, but just not in the field. But they're hearing about this stuff, and they're like, I think this will be a great pivot. You just said even in FinTech alone is going to go from 42 billion. You said 42 to 50, and that's just FinTech alone. Across the board, obviously, the number is massive. I would assume in multiple verticals.
Right.
What is step one can do?
So, as always, just understanding what it is. So getting a baseline understanding of how what AI is, how it works in fintechs, how it works, since this is the tech behind fintech, what applications it has in the technology, what applications it has in fintech. So I have a list of different things about how to understand the basics and get in to AI. But I was going to give an example. When I first got into security, I had no idea what anything meant. Like, I have hilarious stories. Like, I didn't understand the language. I didn't understand anything at all. And somebody gave me like Cybersecurity for Dummies. I had that book. I had people explaining things to me like I was 5. I was like, I need this broken down. I do not understand any of this. So you really want to try to get a grasp at a high level of what it is, how it works. There are some basics of AI on LinkedIn. I did a LinkedIn search in preparation for this. There are some courses that are out there that are free, that are on LinkedIn, that are like an hour to 2 hours, that pretty much give an overview of AI, what it is, and what else you need, how it works, right? So that's step one. So learning the basics. Familiarizing yourself with the concepts like machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, those various robotics, computer vision, all of these pieces that make up, what AI is. And then from a knowledge perspective, most of the folks that are coming in, like the engineers and the analysts, typically have a math background. So what you were talking about, and what goes back to what I think that this is probably going to be heavily in the college degree area. They're talking about having a grasp of linear algebra, calculus, probability, statistics. So, unless you're a whiz in high school, that is mostly, some of those are going to be some college courses. And then from a programming perspective, having understanding a programming language. So Python seems to be the one that's most popular. And so if you understand Python, you're already halfway, probably very close to being there. And then again, the online course, data structures and algorithms. So understanding that space as well. Then we can talk about the online courses. So Coursera, edX, Khan Academy, LinkedIn. I saw some, some courses on LinkedIn that's focused on, AI, especially the one I didn't dig deep, but the AI basics, really understanding. There's some cool courses on there. And that kind of gets people started. And then when you obviously, I was watching a podcast, I was watching a LinkedIn Live the other day, and the person who talks about the live said, you have to get your hands dirty. So you want to be able to get into whatever it is you're doing. Absorbing the knowledge is one thing, but actually doing the thing is trumps, especially when it comes to experience, that trumps everything else. So, and that's how you get your experience. That's how you can truly talk about your project. So if I went and learned about how to do these lives, but I've never done one, that's a different conversation. If somebody wants to hire me to be like their live stream producer or whatever, right? If I've actually done the lives and I know, oh, these are the steps, this is what you have to do, and this is how I made a mistake, and this is what we did, and this is how we changed it in the middle of the live stream. That's a whole different conversation that you're having, because the person gets like, oh wow, this person actually did this stuff. They know they made the mistakes already. They've been through a little bit of the fire. And it doesn't have to be a whole lot, but something so that they know that you've touched it, you've played in it, you've played in the sandbox a little bit. And that's kind of like how you start getting on your way to getting into the field. And again, I'll reiterate this because everyone seems to skip over this part, is if you're in a large company, you want to get in, you go to the person leading those AI projects in the lab, you go to the people and you say, hey, this is interesting to me. If you have extra work, extra projects, they definitely gonna have extra work and extra projects right now. You volunteer yourself to pick up something that you can work on within your company, and lo and behold, you'll get an offer to be the AI whatever in that company. So many people do not do this. It's just bizarre, but that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people get caught up in their particular job function, and then they don't really think about that, which is
if they want to get out, they always look out. They look external instead of looking within. I gotta write a book or something about that.
It
do it all the time. And I'm like, have you looked in your company? Like, that's the first question I ask people. They call me and they're looking for something else. I'm like, are there other opportunities inside your company? And I get all these reasons why they haven't looked inside their company. And I go, you might want to, you're already there. Unless you come with a bad rap. But if you've been there and the people like you, and you think you can, it's easier to transition while you're already in a company than to go try to find something externally where they're looking for somebody that has experience. They're looking for all of these specific things that you may not yet have. So
that makes total sense. Wow. I know that time is of the essence, and I just wanted to cover those things from the employer standpoint and the employee standpoint. Oh, and one of the other great resources is Google AI for Everyone. It's an edX, it's free, and they have it. I'm gonna put it in the comments.
There's so many.
Everyone can see it. Okay, new development. So it looks like you can stay. Yeah, I mean, just in general, man. I always love our conversations, because
They're fun.
I think, they're extremely fun. And we talk so much in general. So it's like, and what's crazy is we talk, but I actually don't see you. Like,
right.
The only time I actually see
so sleepy. I feel like my eyes are like this today.
He sees when we do the lives. That's very interesting. Because you and one of my sisters. Well, no, actually both of them. Because we all live in separate states, and it's like I talk to them a lot, right? But I only kind of see them. Well, one of them that I work with, I see her on Zoom. But the other one, I just talk to one verbally, and then we every once a year, maybe we might see each other. So it's interesting with people that you talk to, and you see them on the Zoom, but you don't. I don't know. I went off on a tangent right there. Random thought, and this is the whole point of doing live stuff. You tend to go off on tangent. Okay, you talk about what's on your mind, but no, this is really good. I really want people to check out that Google AI for Everyone. I think that's a really good resource. I know I've used it.
And if they haven't been, I mean, this is the thing about, well, you stream to a lot of different people. So I was going to assume, but just, we're not only thinking about tech people and finance people because we're watching Tech Behind FinTech. It could be all different types of people that are looking at this. And, Chat GPT is the one super simple. I mean, high school kids and middle school kids are using it. So if you have no idea of what it is, just, do a search on that and jump in there because it's so ridiculously easy to use. And you can get a feel for what this is, like how big this can be. So when it first hit was public, and I think it was November of last year, it went crazy because people were able to, have it. They had Chat GPT versus a human taking different exams and tests and all that stuff. So it's just super easy from a purely, hey, what is this Chat GPT? What's this AI stuff about? That's one area where you can just jump right in and check it out, because you literally type in whatever and it gives you a whole list. Write me a paper on X. It's fascinating.
Chat GPT, a simple way to put it. I mean, we go into large language models and how it works. I like to just say it's Google on steroids. That's how to just simplify it like that. It's Google on steroids. Instead of like when you look for something, you're asking a question, you're getting a response and different elements. But you can actually use Chat GPT to help you write out an action plan on how to learn something or how to gain some insight. That's the beauty. I think that's one of the beautiful elements of it. It's like, I would have learned this. All right, Jack, how would I go about doing that? What resources would I use? So it's really interesting how it could be leveraged. But listen, I'm not seeing questions from the audience at this point, but someone did email in a question. Let me find it because I want to make sure that we get the answer.
I think I got something through LinkedIn, but chat. Give me a second too.
Could you highlight some misconceptions employees might have about recruiting AI professionals?
Can you highlight misconceptions?
Yeah.
Well, employers would have. Yeah. Employers would have.
With 10 years of experience.
I mean, that's what it always is, right? Like everybody throws out these numbers. They don't know. So I can use my one loan example, and I could also pull on these other examples from like cyber. Especially in the beginning when something is new, they don't really know what they're looking for. A lot of times it's like, oh, I know that I'm supposed to get this type of a person, or I need somebody to do this work on this project, but I don't know exactly what I need. So misconceptions might be, oh, you really need an analyst, or you're looking for an engineer. Like those types of things tend to happen. Compensate, how many people are in the market, like the misconceptions around, oh, I can just go out and find somebody. I can, the years of experience stuff, all of that. So especially in the beginning of a new field, there tends to be a lot of just confusion around what is happening, like what's going on in the marketplace. So one of the good things for employers to do is when they're looking is to do some due diligence around, what the market is like for this type of talent. And when you're trying to hire, what you should be looking for, going back to those top 3 skills. Like if I know I need these 1 or 2 skills, if I look at a couple of different companies that are doing this and they have these people with these skills, then this is probably the right fit. It's probably the right type of skill. So there's a lot of skill mismatch in general, overall, like even with some more seasoned roles, because people, I think they know the end result, but they don't know what the type of person that's going to get to that result, the type of skills that's needed to get to that. So That tends to be the challenge. That's why they tend to ask for these 10 years experience and certifications and stuff that you can't get that certification unless you have X amount of years or whatever. There's always like that crazy Mod Podge. And then another thing employers do, especially some employers will give information to HR and it'll be really generic, some managers or leaders, and then the HR person has to go make something up. So then they go pull from somewhere and they don't kind of know what they're doing either. So it's the blind leading the blind. And that's how you sometimes end up, not all the time, sometimes end up in these wacky situations with job descriptions that say, oh, 2 years experience, 5 years, you 2 years experience asking for a certification that you would need 5 years of experience to get.
That makes a lot of sense. Definitely seen that in my travels. That makes a lot of sense.
It happens often. I mean,
you look at the job description, like this doesn't even make it like what?
It doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then
Okay.
the recruiter, if it's a lot of recruiters, if you're in a company that has, a lot of different recruiters recruiting multiple different things, it's really going to be difficult for them to understand. Like if you have a niche recruiter or recruiting department, like some companies have like, okay, this is a utility person. They're gonna do pick up whatever we have. So if we have finance roles, we have technology roles, we have HR roles, we have all these different roles. This person's gonna handle different roles. Then you have some that are aligned. Usually technology has its own world just because we tend to be a little crazier. So usually companies, especially the large ones, they will have somebody focused specifically on tech, and then have someone, potentially specifically in cyber, specifically in, these other niches. So you'll have people who specialize, but even still, they may specialize in technology, whatever that is, right? And not AI or something very, very niche, because they may not be a big group for that yet, where you need one dedicated person for that yet. So that's where you have a manager that'll show up and be like, okay, I need this. This is what I'm looking for. And they throw it down to, an HR person or a recruiter. And the recruiter's like, well, let me go to ChatGPT and find out what do I need? Well, ChatGPT actually be able to help them probably better than just 100%. And go out there and say, oh, what does company X have posted for their AI positions? Because this happens a lot. They'll go to some career, website, pluck somebody else's wrong job description, copy it, paste it, and then you have this treasure trove of bad job descriptions that are out there, and people are like, well, how do you get 10 years of this? And Python wasn't even around in 1999 or whatever. So you'll have that going on.
It's weird, like you said that, and I don't know where my mind just went. Like I literally envisioned a treasure chest filled of write-ups with just bad
job descriptions.
Actually, we should make that into some sort of cartoon.
We should.
That would be a cool cartoon.
I agree.
Like, I'm like getting really into this whole the YouTube graphic before you watch the video.
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind.
But it would be, because that's what it feels like. Like when people would say, oh, I submit my resume into a black hole, that's really what it feels like. It's like it goes into this thing, it gets sucked in, and then you never hear from anybody ever again. And they always are like, well, what's going on back there? Like, what's happening in that applicant tracking system / black hole thing? It's like, you got millions of resumes sitting back there and 4 recruiters that can't go through all those resumes. And, like it's a lot.
Bring that back, right? So now a lot of these systems will have, and that's a perfect example of how an AI application can be leveraged for that. Some sort of machine learning model that can now go, because like anytime you have a large set of data. That's when large set of data and limited number of people.
Yeah.
And then you build these types of applications that can help you traverse through that. Listen, as always, thank you very much for your time today. You've been excellent as always. I love having you come on the show on a monthly basis and we chop it up about the latest in recruiting and the different aspects in HR. You give that level of insight. To be fair to you, I would like you all, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about yourself, your company, how people can find you, and I'm going to give you the stage.
Sure. So as you all know, I am Renee Small, Cybersecurity Super Recruiter, or Cybersecurity and beyond, because I've been getting a lot of open positions in many different areas. But deep down in my core is technology. I have a degree in information systems. Technology has always kind of been a part of my life. My dad was a computer science professor, so there you have it. But in regards to my company, Cyberhuman Capital, we help leaders hire great talent. So if you are looking for cybersecurity talent, AI talent, technology talent as a whole, definitely reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's my social media channel of choice, LinkedIn, and it is Renee Brown Small on LinkedIn. And the website is cyberhc.com.
Love it. Love it. As always, thank you very much once again. Guys, thank you very much for hopping on the show. We value our guests on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, also on Instagram. I see a lot of the guys I train with that are tuned in. Thank you very much for that. Listen, there was a little snafu with the time slots, but we corrected it. So a lot of people thought we were going at 8 a.m., but every Friday, 12 p.m. EST live. That is our time slot for the Tech Behind FinTech. Once again, that is 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live every Friday. Thank you just in general for watching it. Please go on our LinkedIn page, like it, or follow it. I think I'm confusing my social media platforms. Follow it on LinkedIn and on our website, Tech Behind FinTech. Drop your email address so we can put you onto our new upcoming newsletter. Other than that, have a phenomenal weekend, and I'll catch you back here next week, Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Cheers.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.